One of my favorite Buddhist authors is Brad Warner. I have a couple of his books in my library. Sit Down and Shut Up, punk rock commentaries on Buddha, God, truth, sex, death, and Dogen's treasury of the right Dharma I. And Hardcore Zen, punk rock, monster movies, and the truth about reality. I've got my eye on a couple of his other more recent books, particularly this one, Don't Be a Jerk, and other practical advice from Dogen, Japan's greatest Zen master. Just a little background on Brad. He's not your normal Zen master. He started out his life playing bass in a punk rock band on the West Coast. And then he decided to move to Japan. He needed a job. And so he found a job getting dressed up as giant monsters for the Ultraman TV shows and movies. Now he's in Japan, and one of the things that he wants to do is study Zen Buddhism. And so he began seeking out a Zen master. He wants to become an ordained Zen priest. And eventually that comes about for him after years and years of study. I actually met him after he became an ordained Zen priest when I was in Cedar Rapids. He was promoting his book, Sit Down and Shut Up. And he would say that, his words may sound pretty blatant, and, like, you need to do this. But his philosophy was a little gentler. It was, make time in your life to sit down for a few minutes, to be quiet, to just breathe and allow your thoughts to flow through you. He was teaching Zazen meditation and teaching us how to be open and spiritually grounded as we allowed ourselves to experience whatever that breathing would bring us. Insight or purpose, direction, connection to the here and now. Now, he has kind of a different way of expressing Zen Buddhism, I know. For instance, he says that the foundation of Buddhist morality is just do the best you can. And he does affirm the Four Noble Truths, but he has sort of a different way, maybe a more modern way to reach some of the people out there who may not know much about Buddhism. For instance, he writes about the first noble truth, suffering. And he says that the first noble truth represents idealism. When you look at things from an idealistic viewpoint, everything sucks. As the Descendants, the Brock group Descendants said in their song, everything sucks. From their album, Everything Sucks. Nothing can possibly live up to the ideals and fantasies you've created inside yourself. So we suffer because things are not the way we think they ought to be. Rather than face what is, we prefer to retreat and compare what we're living to the way we think we ought to be living. Suffering comes when we compare the two. And of course, his description of Zen monks is a little unusual. He says that Zen monks are those who have achieved a rare state of inner with-itness. Now, I talk about Brad this morning because I want us to understand a little bit more about contemplative practices, meditation, ritual, all those kinds of things. And he has some wisdom to share that I think is useful for us to know as we begin to approach doing some of these contemplative practices. First of all, he believes that the very idea that we're trying to achieve some sort of higher state of consciousness when we do a contemplative practice is absurd. Comparing one state of consciousness to another is like saying one is higher and the other is mundane. And he compares that to, well, would you say the same when you're eating a banana and complaining it's not a good apple? So he doesn't want us to think in terms of levels of consciousness, what's higher, what's lower, what's better. He says practicing zazen or any contemplative practice is gradually, or maybe depending how it goes, not so gradually, getting your sight back. Getting your sight back. To contemplate is to think about an action before you do it. And that is related in a lot of ways to what a contemplative practice is. To turn our attention within before taking an action. To practice opening ourselves up to an inner vision, seeking to transcend the intellect through various actions, practices. However, there are so many different contemplative practices and such disparate experiences from those practices. Describing what a contemplative practice is like trying to describe an elephant to a blind person. A blind person might come up to the elephant and they want to know what an elephant is, and so they touch the elephant to understand it. But as one blind person touches an elephant's leg, they think they're touching a pillar. Another blind person might touch the tail and think that this is a rope. And another, the trunk, and think it's a tree branch. And another, to feel the ear and think it's some kind of hand fan. With contemplative practices, you might hear one person describing the effect of their practice as relaxation. Another saying that their practice has led them to an experience of transformation. Another saying they have learned more about themselves through their contemplative practice. And another might say, I have found a way to connect with my goddess through this practice. When someone asks me what a contemplative practice can offer, I often tell them the story of the martial arts student who approaches a teacher with a question. He says, I'd like to improve my knowledge of the martial arts. In addition to learning from you, I'm going to study with another teacher in order to learn that style as well. What do you think, Master? And the Master answers, the hunter who chases 2 rabbits catches neither one. You see, a divided attention between the goal and the practice, you may find that you get nothing. If we focus on the goal, we stop looking as deeply and clearly within ourselves. Part of our conscious attention is devoted to the moment where we'll achieve something. It'll all come together for us. Our desire and attachment to a particular outcome clouds our way, keeps us from actually getting the gifts, blessings, grace, insight, connection we might receive from our contemplative practice. I have a couple of contemplative practices myself. I practice both prayer and meditation. I pray because I believe there is something out there beyond just the physical things around me. Not to pray to get a connection to whatever is out there, because I'm not even sure what it is that's out there. And prayer for me helps me affirm the values that I try to live in my life, to give them voice, and to give voice to those things that are stirring in my heart. I don't believe that anything out there is going to help me live my values or is going to answer the stirrings of my heart. But I do believe it's important to give those voice. I personally use a formulaic prayer that I've developed over time. It starts off with calling out to whatever is out there, the infinite power, whom people call by varying names, but whose grandeur and whose love no name expresses, no words can tell. Sometimes I'll use different names. Mystery, God, Goddess, that which is beyond understanding, love, that which causes the flowers to shine and the stars to blossom. Whatever feels right in the moment. And then I give voice to the things I'm grateful for in my life. The cool breeze on my face, the warmth of the sun, the ability to exercise, for my family and friends, sometimes for just being able to complete my sermon on a Sunday morning. And I notice the more I give voice to those gratitudes, the more awareness I have of the various things to be grateful for in my life. The next section of my prayer is for understanding all that I experience in my life. I do not believe that experiences are put in my life by some higher power for me to learn from or grow from or to be humble from. I do believe that my life has to be given meaning, and that is something that I do. That I look at my life experiences and I try to put meaning onto them, or to learn from them, or to gain wisdom from them. Even now, as I face this COVID-19 and quarantine, what is there for me? What wisdom might I gain from this experience? This section of my prayer is to remind me to open my heart, mind, and soul to life so that I may learn, grow, understand more. And finally, I end my prayer with sending out hope and blessings to others. Sometimes it's poetic, like, may the winds, the oceans, the herbs, nights and days, Mother Earth, Father Heaven, all vegetation, the sun, be sweet to humankind. And sometimes it's just sending out healing thoughts to those in need, to those in pain, to those suffering. I do believe that intentionally sending out my blessings to others makes a difference. I've read about studies that say that having positive regard to others actually has health benefits. But regardless, I believe that I would send out these blessings even if there weren't any studies to show that this is helpful. It feels like our world is always in need of positive regard, the people in need of blessings and healing and love, and that I am called to send that out into the world. I also meditate, and when I meditate, I find my mind becomes clearer. Sometimes I get some insight or a different perspective, and that's helpful to me. And I get those things not because I'm looking for them, but because meditation I see as a way of opening myself up to whatever might be offered to me. I use Zazen meditation, again, that's just focusing on your breathing as it goes into and out of your body, feeling the sensations go in and out without expectation. In and out. And if I receive anything, I express my gratitude. My meditation helps me remain grounded in the present, mindful. And through regular meditation, I've come to learn what many of the teachers of meditation have said, that in fact meditation is a teacher rather than a servant, a process rather than a goal. So I breathe. Without goals, without expectations. And as I breathe, I continue to bring my attention back to my breathing, and back to my breathing, and back to my breathing, because my mind will wander. And while I do that, I attend to whatever I may receive. Whether I use meditation or prayer or any contemplative practice, and this is true across all contemplative practices, there are things that are just basic. To be relaxed, comfortable, to focus on a concentration point of some sort. And we did that today. We focused during our 2 meditations not on a candle or a picture or a music or mandala or chanting. We focused instead on our bodies during the first meditation. And then on an object across the room, or really, if not an object, an idea, a person, a dream, a thought, something that you can sense as separate and outside yourself. We did that with Martha's meditation. You focused on the visualization. The pebble, sand. And during your focus, you asked questions during that visualization to ground yourself. What are you today? The boulder, the rock, the pebble, the sand. All of these. What is the energy that is swirling around in you? How is it changing you? How is that energy changed by your interaction with it? How will you choose to write your own story? One more thing. I haven't talked much about passive attitude, other than to say, don't have any goals or expectations as you do a contemplative practice. Jack Kornfield, a teacher of American Theravada Buddhism, offers this bit of wisdom about passive attitude during a contemplative practice. He says we practice to become our own monastery. What I say is we create a compassionate space that allows us to be open to all the things that arise within us. Whether it be emotions like sorrow, loneliness, shame, desire, regret, frustration, happiness, or a different perspective, a different way of seeing things. We're open to what is stirring within us. We create that space for opportunity. And that opportunity could be many things. It could be relaxation or awareness or insight or wisdom. We're just there to be open to it. Cornfield's teacher says of this, Cornfield's teacher is Ashan Shah. He says it is taking a seat, the one seat. And he says that it's like this contemplative practices are just like that you're going into the room within yourself. And you're putting a chair in the center of the room. And then you're opening all the doors and windows of the room. And you sit in that center chair. And you see who comes to visit. And you'll witness all kinds of scenes and actors, all kinds of temptations and stories, everything imaginable. Your only job is to stay in that one seat. You will see it all arise and pass, and out of this, wisdom and understanding will come. Here's the thing, just take that one seat and simply observe. But you can't do that just one time. It's practice. Time and time and time again. Without expectation. You pick a practice and you stick with it for a while. Without expectation, allowing yourself to be open as you practice. I hope you do take some time for meditation or prayer or whatever practice feels right to you. I believe that in one way or another, we already do, in a passive way, maybe have some sort of contemplative practice. But I want you to do something intentionally. It's important to be intentional and consistent and open as you practice. Yes, we do stop and think about things before we act. But that practice may not help us achieve what we want to achieve, gain the insight we want to gain, allow us to be with what is stirring within us before moving forward to action. And practices like this contemplative practice, will be helpful to us regardless of what is going on in the world. Regardless of whether we're quarantined or we're back out face to face in the world again. It is about the practice, the time we set aside for ourselves. For my friends, this life we have been given is a journey of the holy. If we just recognize the holy in our experiences. This life offers us experiences of transformation, experiences no words can adequately express. Experiences that are just as real as the ground beneath our feet. At times, our lives might call us to a spiritual path of the heart. And what the heart expresses, gives voice to, is prayer. At another point in our lives, our spiritual journey may be one of being, still, breathing. when our inner being calls us to meditate. This is your holy journey. And choosing your practice is for you to decide. As you choose it, own it, and know yourself to be more fully alive. Namaste. Shalom. Peace.